This is the Construction Leading Edge podcast from constructionleadingedge.com. My name is Todd DeWalt. My job is to help you grow your leadership skills, grow your business, grow your income. This is the podcast for small construction business owners. And today, this is going to be a solo cast. This is me talking. I'm going to answer a few questions, and I'm going to give you some advice that should help you when you're dealing with your clients. I got an email from Joel, and he said, "Hey Todd, could you do a podcast about owner reps out there? With the experience you have in the field, it could be really helpful to get input on this." So Joel, I'm going to answer a few of your questions about owners reps, and then I'm going to give you some keys to dealing with owners reps. So if you happen to be an owners rep, I'm going to give you some advice. And if you're a contractor, you're also going to get an inside look at what's important to owners reps. And the second part of the podcast is going to be me giving you some tips on how to be successful with the owners reps. Once they cross over to the dark side, owners reps can be a little difficult, but there are some tips and tricks you can use. Before I get into that, I do want to tell you, I've got some resources out there for you. I put together a video with some basics on cash flow. So if you are a small construction business owner and you want to improve your cash flow, and let's be honest, who doesn't want to improve their cash flow? Go to constructionleadingedge.com/cash. I've got a free video there with some cash flow basics that I think will help you out. So constructionleadingedge.com/cash. Also, if you're a small construction business owner and you want to put your business in overdrive, you want to take it to the next level, improve your cash flow, grow your business, make your crew more productive, create a good company culture, I've set up the Advanced Construction Leadership Community to help you do exactly that. Go to constructionleadingedge.com/community. Find out how being an ACLC member will help you get to the next level. So now, let's get to that first question. First one, we'll get straight to it. When does an owner file liquidated damages? When the project is delayed due to many changes in the contract work. So here's how that's going to work. If a contractor is late, if they're past their substantial completion date, then the owner's going to file liquidated damages. And here's why. What you may not realize is going on behind the scenes is that if you're working for, whatever you're building, there's some sort of cost behind that. If it's a distribution center, then there's a tenant that wants to move in there, and that tenant's not going to start paying rent until they can get in the space. They're not going to get in the space until it's substantially complete. And what that means is that your client, the owner of that building, is having to pay construction loan interest without getting rent. So they are incurring real damages. That's what liquidated damages are for. Frankly, liquidated damages are better than consequential damages. So this is a little contract hint for you. If you're a contractor and you ever see a provision in there that would allow your client to hit you with consequential damages, you need to raise the red flag, because here's what consequential damages means. That means that your client can charge you, can file a claim, and can claim lost profits, lost contracts. They can pile up as much consequential damages, the damages that are a consequence of you being late. So liquidated damages actually protect everybody. You agree up front what the liquidated damages are. And the best way to prevent liquidated damages, if you're the contractor, is make sure and keep a good schedule. Every month you're updating your schedule. If you have a weather delay, you're dealing with it on a routine basis. If there are changes in the work, you're filing a delay of claim or a claim for an extension of time. And you got to do that. It's not comfortable to do that, but I'm telling you, it's much better to do that on a regular basis than get to the end and fight about it and be arguing about liquidated damages. So there you go, liquidated damages. Next question. What are the most important things to keep an eye on as an owner's rep to ensure we're looking out for the owner's interest and minimize going over budget and avoiding project delays? In my opinion, and in my experience, the number one thing owners reps are looking for is to reduce and eliminate long-term risk. Let me say that again. Owners reps are primarily interested in reducing and eliminating long-term risk. What does long-term risk look like? Think worst case. If you're building a new building, you have a foundation failure, you have a sinkhole under your building, you have a roof on a 500,000 square foot building that was improperly constructed, and you have condensation issues, and now it's raining inside the building, and it's going to cost $2 million to fix it over top of an operational building. That's long-term risk. That's what owners' reps are primarily concerned about. So that means they are making sure that the building that the design is solid, that it doesn't have any risky materials or risky building systems. They're very concerned about quality control, QA, QC during the construction project, having a good, solid geotechnical engineer. If this is a new building and we're talking about foundations, we want to make sure that the subgrade is good, make sure that everything under the building is built properly, that there's a construction materials testing program that's in place to reduce that long-term risk, make sure that the structural steel is in place properly, that all the special inspections are taken care of. So it's if there's a long-term risk to it, go find a case study about some building failure and then work backwards from there. That's the number one thing that owners reps are concerned about, long-term risk. And what may not be so apparent is that the initial construction cost of a building, for example, is like 30 to 40% of the lifetime operating cost of the building. So it's less than 50% of the lifetime operating cost. So operating the building and making sure there are no long-term risks are the biggest concerns, and closing the project out, making sure that all the legal issues are taken care of. Legal issues that would also fall under the long-term risk would be making sure that your building is built inside of the building setback lines, making sure that you're not on easements, that you're out of right-of-ways, avoiding big, hairy, ugly legal issues, making sure that you're compliant with zoning ordinances so you don't have to tear part of your building down, things like that. Those are the big ticket items that primarily concerned about, and then closing it out, making sure that all the documentation is there to satisfy lenders, investors, bankers, regulatory agencies, municipalities, etc., that all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. Let's see. Next question. What are the most critical aspects in a project that should be done in the front end to reduce construction conflicts to the minimum? Great question. As an owner's rep, your job and where you should spend most of your time, if you do an 80-20 analysis and look for the place where you can spend 20% of your time and get 80% of the impact, is to clearly define the scope of work. What are you building? Work with your team, your client, whoever you're representing, and clearly define the scope of work. That means coming up with a project charter, some narrative description of what success looks like when the project's done. Could be an outline spec that defines what success looks like and establishes what's in the project and what's out of the project. Where projects get bogged down is when scope creep kicks in, and when the project comes through, people start trying to add things onto it, take things away from it. You need to have a project charter that's sort of your compass that everybody who's on the decision-making team agrees to and says, this is what we're doing. So when something comes up, you refer back to that project charter and say, nope, this is not in the charter. Yes, it is, and then you can move forward. And speaking of decision makers, one of the biggest things you need to do is identify the decision makers up front. Who is going to be on the steering team? Who decides what's in, what's out? Who approves the budget? Who approves contracts? What is the purchasing process? What are the procurement guidelines that you have to follow? What are all the lines on the field that you don't want to step on and get out of bounds? You also need to establish up front the change control process. What's the process? Who will approve change orders? Who will approve? Is it based on a dollar amount? Is it based on timing? What is it? Figure out who needs to be involved and keep those folks involved in the project and keep them up to date. The other thing that is very important is to establish a realistic schedule up front and a realistic budget up front, and don't pull something out of the air. Don't use historical data. For God's sake, don't use information from an architect or an engineer. Get a contractor on board to do some estimating. If you have to pay them to develop an estimate and help you put together the schedule, that is money well spent on a big project. If I just did a $20 million project, just got that kicked off, and I was willing to spend $10,000 to get a good estimate, to get a good budget and a good schedule, because a lot of decisions are going to be based on the schedule and the budget, and the worst thing you can do is pull some number out of the air, pull it out of a means catalog, or use something to use bad information. Let's put it that way. That's probably the friendly way to say it, is to use bad information. So spend some time, spend some money, develop a realistic schedule and budget up front. Now, this is a question that Joel did not ask, but it's one that I will answer. What should owners' reps stay out of? What should they keep their nose out of? Here's what they should stay out of. Owners' reps should stay out of what I call means and methods. They establish the end result. They establish the process, the quality assurance protocol for getting it done, and then they should leave the contractor alone. Don't get into means and methods. If you want to get into means and methods, then you better write your spec that way. But you better be prepared to get bogged down into a lot of details if that's the case. Owners' reps need to stay out of the interaction between the general contractor and their subcontractors, between the GCs and their suppliers. Be available to get involved as needed, but get yourself out of that. Stay out of that. You need to let your contractors take care of their business. If you don't trust your contractor to do that, if you feel like you've got to be involved in all of that, then you've probably hired the wrong contractor. So scrub your contractors ahead of time, pre-qualify them, make sure you've got capable people who are going to run your project so you can keep your nose out of that. And avoid unnecessary involvement. Don't invite yourself in and insert yourself into processes that you don't need to be in there. Don't insert yourself into contractor sub-coordination meetings. Don't insert yourself into the RFI approval process just to justify your existence. Don't make everything go through you. Let your team, let your architect, engineer, consultants do their job and set up a good chain of command, a good protocol so that things are moving smoothly. Your job as the owner's rep is to be like the guy that you used to see, maybe they still do this, in the Northwest when they would float logs down the river, and you would see this guy out there with a stick, and he's pushing logs one way or the other to prevent log jams. His job was to keep everything moving and avoid log jams that bound up the whole process. That's your job as an owner's rep, is to keep the process moving, prevent log jams. Your job is to manage the flow of information. You are a broker of information. That's what it comes down to. All right, so those are some questions that Joel asked. Hope that helps you out. Plus one question that he didn't ask, but I felt like I needed to include. Next, let me give you some advice. Here are some keys to working with owners' reps. Maybe if you've dealt with a client and you couldn't quite figure out what the hell is this guy thinking, or what's this lady's deal, they don't seem to know what they're doing, etc. I'm going to give you some insider advice here. So first of all, first key, I've got 4 keys here. First of all is you need to understand that there is a knowledge gap. You need to close the knowledge gap. And what that means is that when it comes to, if you could imagine a straight, like a graph of knowledge, about construction and knowledge about the process, you're way over here on the right side. You have extensive knowledge about construction. You understand your business. You understand all the ins and outs. You know things that you know because you've been in it as long as you've been in it. Now, the mistake that a lot of people make is assuming that their client or their owner's rep knows everything that they do. So instead of you spending time trying to dazzle your client with how much you know and overwhelming them with knowledge, you'd be better off to go find out where are they on the knowledge graph. Ask questions. Make sure they understand. I was in a meeting a few weeks ago and I had a client say, what's an RFI? We're like, well, it's a request for information. Everybody knows that. Everybody in the construction industry knows that. But people who aren't in the construction industry don't know all of that stuff. So you have to understand that there is a knowledge gap, and you need to focus on closing that knowledge gap, educating them on the process, educating them on all the jargon, the players, how things typically work. Find out where they're at. Ask lots of questions. Don't make assumptions about what they know. You also need to understand that these people have full-time jobs. They may not be. They may have something else that they're doing. So they may not have cleared their plate of all the responsibilities just to work on this project that you're working on. So understand where they're at with knowledge, understand where they're at with their time and what their commitment is, and how much availability they have for this project. Secondly, number 2, surprises are bad. Owners reps do not like surprises. We don't like to find stuff out late in the game. We do not like to find stuff out when it's too late to make a change. If you want to piss your client off, then do something, incur costs, and then tell them they don't have any choice about it. That's a really good way to piss off your client. So no surprises. Make sure that you give your client options, and the best way to do that is to communicate early and communicate often. If you see an issue that comes up, raise the issue and say, you may not have a solution for it yet, but you're better off to say, hey, this issue came up over here. We ran into a sinkhole over here. We're working on it. We'll have an answer for you by a certain date, but I just wanted to make sure that you are aware of it. Communicate early and communicate often. Do not surprise your client. Surprises are bad. Number 3, be a good steward of their time and attention. Like I mentioned, in a lot of cases, your client rep or your owner's rep, the person you're working with, they have a full-time job. They have something else that they're doing other than sitting around waiting for you to send them emails or phone calls about this project. Maybe they're maybe they're an administrative assistant. I've worked with folks who are admins to executives, and they got put on the project. I've worked with operations executives and engineers and architects and people who have construction experience. But be a good steward of their time and attention. And what that means is here's a couple of things. Don't pile up everything at one time. Don't overwhelm them with a bunch of decisions, a bunch of approvals, a bunch of things that they've got to do all at once. Don't ask for everything at the beginning of the project, because you don't need everything at the beginning of the project. Also, don't wait until the last minute. Another good way to piss off your client is to send an email at 4 o'clock on Friday and say, please advise by 8 a.m. Monday morning, or we're going to have to shut down, or there's going to be some sort of delay. You need to be a good steward of their time. Give them the opportunity to answer the question, because in a lot of cases, what you may not know is they can't just make a decision on their own. They have to go check with their stakeholders and the people on their side of the fence before they can give you an answer. So communicate early, communicate often, be a good steward of their time. Don't wait until the last minute. And then something I've started doing just recently is to figure out on the front end of the project, what are all of the owner obligations? What are all the client obligations? If they need to execute everything from execute the contract to select their furniture vendor to provide their furniture drawings, everything that you need from them, everything you need for your project to be successful, that they are responsible for. Owner furnished equipment, owner consultants, information approvals, whatever that you need. Put together a list of that at the front end before you sign a contract. Put dates to each of those items and create a schedule of owner obligations. And then publish that, make it part of the contract, put it in your project schedule. That's part of the contract. And then they understand what they're responsible for and they see how it ties into the overall project schedule. So that could be shop drawing reviews and approvals, all those other things I already talked about. But anything that you need to be successful for your project, for you to deliver what you're obligated to deliver, but you're not responsible for, that somebody else is responsible for, put it in there, and that will help them. Item number 4, do not be a problem collector. This is a real pet peeve of mine. I've had contractors who would have come up with some problem with a subcontractor or with weather or a delivery, and it's 100% their problem. And I'll get an email that says, "Hey Todd, looks like this is going to be late," or "looks like this thing happened. Please advise." Please advise. Like it's my job to solve their problem. That's a problem collector. That's somebody who's going around picking up problems saying, "Oh, here you go. Look, I've got this box of problems. Look, give me a pat on the back for collecting problems." If you bring a problem to your client, then bring a solution, bring at least a couple of recommendations, let me back up. If you're going to share a problem with your client, then bring options to solve it. If you can, make a recommendation, and then tell them some of the things that they need to keep in mind as they consider it. So here's the issue that we've run into. It's not our problem. Let's say it's a weather delay, and there's a domino effect because of the weather delay. You could say, here's option number 1. We could accelerate this part of the job. And if we did that, it would mean this, this, and this. Here's the approximate cost. Here's option number 2. Here's the no cost option. Here's the, whatever the options are. But paint the picture for them of here are the options. And then make a recommendation. What's the best thing for the project? What's the best thing for them to do? So there you go. 4 keys to working with owners reps. If you'll do these things, it will help you build better relationships with your clients. It will develop trust. They will trust you more, and both of those things will help you get repeat business from your clients. So focus on the knowledge gap, find out where your client is, and then help to bring them closer to where you're at and close the knowledge gap. Number 2, surprises are bad. Communicate early and often. Number 3, be a good steward of their time and attention. Number 4, do not be a problem collector. So there you go. Joel, I answered your questions. I hope that helps you out. For the rest of you guys and gals out there, for you owners reps, there's some advice for you. For those of you who are dealing with owners reps, that should help you as well to be successful. Hope that helps. If you got any questions, shoot me an email, todd@constructionleadingedge.com. And don't forget, small business owners, if you want to take your business to the next level, come join an exclusive group of small construction business owners over at the Advanced Construction Leadership Community, or the ACLC for short. Learn more about that at constructionleadingedge.com/community. And I will talk to you guys next time. Thanks so much.